have to go to Mr. Sean Rose, reporter extraordinaire, with the stories making the news this week. Sean, what is going on?
Good evening, Edgerenka. Good evening, viewers. Edgerenka, tonight we're hearing that the education system here in the Virgin Islands is at the crossroads. We're hearing this from Minister of Education, Honorable Myron Walwyn, and he's saying that there is need for reform at this stage. Of course, he used the opportunity today where the Education Department launched its the third phase of its consultation process in helping to enlighten the territory about the need to, one, introduce an additional year for secondary students throughout the territory, both private and public secondary institutions. And also, he is leading the charge for reforms at the BVI Technical and Vocational Institute. In fact, the changes in terms of the additional year to the secondary school term would come in the next 2 years or so. And the reforms at the BVI, TVI are expected to come on board in September of this year. These are fundamental changes because, according to the minister, the BVI needs to compete globally, BVI students per se, and therefore Virgin Islands students need to pay attention to the fact that they have to operate on a global level, and to do so, to compete effectively in that global space, there is a need to ensure that they are given the necessary skills and they are performing and being able to function at a level that is more or less in a balance with other partners and competitors in the region and internationally.
What's the rationale for the extra year in high school, Sean?
I can tell you that I just came from the Sir Rupert Briarcliff Hall just minutes ago, and as I speak, the rationale is overwhelming. We can begin by possibly looking at some of the social ills that we've been looking at in the years gone by via the various talk shows, news pieces, and what have you, and generally speaking throughout the community. Issues relative to lack of discipline, the post-study skills being exhibited by students leaving secondary school, entering the tertiary level institutions, both here and abroad. The issues that they have been encountering in terms of getting students to appreciate the need for taking education seriously. That's just on the social side. Then in terms of the academic performance, we are hearing that for the most part, 49%, 50% of all students entering HLSCC are required to take pre-college courses, whether it be math or English, or both math and English, on an annual basis. We're hearing that a number of students who are aiming to pursue studies in the sciences are having difficulties with basic, some of the fundamental areas of that respective course of study, and are having to again revert to pre-college or remedial courses so that they can be prepared to more or less get into the thick of things regarding their course of study.
But did any indication that middle school was considered? Because it seems to me, if you're talking about maturity, taking children from primary 5 and putting them in high school, is like, if you put it in an American grade context, it would be going from 5th grade to 9th grade. Any discussions around a middle school, or just going directly to an extra year or a sixth form?
Well, so far the argument seems pointed towards a sixth form, as you say, or an additional year, and of course for the reforms at the BVI Technical and Vocational Institute to be much more rounded and much more universal. They are more or less mirroring what they're doing at the technical school, for instance, with what's happening at City and Guilds in terms of the expectations at that level of accreditation, and also what's happening in countries like France and other countries where technical vocational training is not merely an introduction to technical studies, but rather an in-depth look that the students can leave with an accreditation that they can take whether here or abroad and be accepted, both at the CXC level and or CSEC and at the level of City and Guilds. So they're really looking to raise the standard. So I have not heard anything about a middle school, because again, the public discussions are now more or less getting their feet wet. And one would suppose that coming out of tonight's consultation, we would expect a lot more feedback, and the reviews should be very extensive.
There's some concerns that a sixth form would just be more of the same when it comes to quality of education. Instead of giving more time in education or quantity, perhaps we need quality in education, that what we learn from first form to fifth form be of a higher quality, of a higher standard. And I know the minister had made some moves to standardize the education process by using the CXC as a benchmark. And I know that the accreditation process is ongoing. So are we looking to improve the quality and the quantity, or are we just going to look to improve the quantity alone?
Well, I would like to answer that by looking at the points Dr. Charles Wheatley, education consultant, renowned educator here in the BVI, raised during his presentation. He referred to the reform process as an ongoing one, and he pointed way back to the 1950s, where he indicated that the nature of education services in the BVI has really taken on many different forms, the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s. And today, what we know as, for example, the Elmo Stout High School came from the then BVI High School, and there were many versions prior to that in terms of really structuring the education system. And he's saying that the focus has always been for the education system locally, and anywhere you go, one would suppose, to meet the demands of the economy, the society, in particular the development needs of the country. And they are saying at this particular stage, as I just left, Ms. George was making the point that Connie George, education officer, that the level of performance and operation in financial services and tourism at this time being the two key pillars for the territory, there is not enough, local involvement in terms of the workforce, and also the level of competency that locals in particular and the young students coming out of school are required to perform at. They are not there yet. They're not able to deliver on basic expectations in terms of customer service, being able to manage these institutions and businesses and so forth. So generally speaking, you're looking at not necessarily poor levels of expectation, and people are allowing students to do whatever they feel like, but rather the level of expectation is very high, and therefore students must rise to that level and deliver, or else they would face the ongoing trend of having to import labor, as the minister pointed out.
Well, certainly it's encouraging to hear the strides that's being made, or the decisions that's being made regarding the technical and vocational school, the trade school, having it accredited to international standards, using city and guilds as a benchmark. So certainly our youngsters coming out of that school now will be able to either go overseas to college or go right into the workforce and be apprentices. So
and
I think
that's to adults as well, folks who are involved in the trades. You may be an electrician who was never certified. You can now go access your services there and be certified. So it's not limited to teenagers per se, but rather it's exposed to the entire community.
I certainly like that idea. It's going to be a big hot debate over the next. It's going to be hot.
It's going to be one difficult transition as well for some people.
Yes. But Sean, there's a great story coming up. We need to pay attention to JTV in the next few days to see what else is coming on board. But certainly the education process developing the way it's developing is going to make for some interesting discussion. And certainly we hope that we could raise that standard and get the education system satisfying our national needs. Thank you very much for that report.
Welcome.
Yes, we're going to take a break for a word from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.